Good morning, everybody. How are you? Happy Thursday. It is such a beautiful day outside in my part of the world. I hope the same for you. I hope that you and your families are doing well. And I'm really grateful that we get to spend this time together on a Thursday. Today, I am going to continue my interview series that we've had in August. You know that all throughout August, I brought you some really very interesting data executives, and today is no different. Today we are joined by my friend Justin, who I think just really brings a great perspective to technology, AI tools. So I think that we're really going to have a pretty good session today. So please go ahead and start filling up the chat with your questions. Justin has said, you know what? Put me in the live chat. I want to see the questions. I want to see what people are talking about. So he's here to take your questions. So please go ahead and start filling up the chat with those questions. And, that way we can kind of keep the session interactive. Ultimately, I do this for you guys so that you guys can participate and, kind of get your questions answered. And like I've told you guys, who else is doing this for you? What better thing do you have to do on a Thursday morning than to come and talk to a high level executive? You want to be doing this. Who else is doing this for you? So really looking forward to all of you participating. Let us know your questions in the chat, and Justin will do his best to answer them. So Justin, good morning. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks so much, Dennis. Thanks so much. Love that introduction.
So, Justin, I know your background because we've worked together, but would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and just kind of let us know a little bit about your background, your current interests and whatnot?
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis. So my name is Justin Finkelstein, and I see Casual Economist. Good morning. Thanks for that. I've got about a 25-year corporate career, in technology and in innovation. And my big passion and interest is like, how do I bring the best from like what's going on like in the outside, where we can use like all of our tools inside of a corporate space. So my big passion I put as far as my promo, professional walker. My goal, and I can tell a little bit about history. My goal is to be able to do like all of my work walking, and preferably without a screen, right? So with an iPhone, and just doing audio broadcast, little asynchronous audio notes. And this started when my daughter's 14 now. She's actually on a high school volleyball trip. She just made the JV volleyball team, which is one of the most exciting things for us.
Congrats.
She was 1 year old. I was working. You don't get a lot of sleep at that point. I feel like I didn't have a lot of time. And then at that point in time, I lived in Sunnyside, Queens, and I worked in Wall Street. That's not going to mean that much to people. What matters, it's about a 6 mile walk, which takes about 2.5 hours to walk. And so I noticed during that time I could get feels like a lot done, and time stopped. And since that point, I've never really thought that I didn't have enough time. So I've been walking. At that point, I was just kind of walking. I started listening to podcasts. Early days of the Joe Rogan Experience, and it was like when they were downloaded. And then I started doing brainstorming, which was I started doing videos on YouTube. And then I worked on SoundCloud. And I would just do like 40 messages a day, just sharing my ideas out. And then after that, what I did, I got bored by just listening to myself talk. So I talked about other people and what inspired me about the stuff that they were doing during the walks. I built up a nice like SoundCloud channel and community, and I would just do profiles about what was inspiring about people. The next big and tools that come along with communities are typically the inflection points for me in my interest. So the next one was Anchor, which is like I think it's Spotify podcast right now. When they first came out, it was very social. And it was, again, audio notes back and forth. You can have conversations with people very quickly. And the beautiful piece about like these asynchronous audio tools, and I'll talk about like Voxer and Yak. My new favorite tool is Carbon Voice, where I can send an audio note to you, Dennis, at 3:00 in the morning. If you respond, great. If you don't respond, that's fine. I didn't invest a whole bunch of it, but you could respond 3 days later, immediately, and it occurs like a conversation without all of the overhead. So I'm very into asynchronous voice notes back and forth. Now they're starting to look like meetings. My other big inflection point went Otter.ai when I discovered that in 2019, because look, I've been talking straight through for about, I said I would kind of coming for a landing in 2 minutes here. I'll forget 90%, and let's just say like somebody, in the Patrick in the chat is like, wow, Justin, what he's saying is the most amazing thing ever. This is changing my life. The reality is, an hour from now, Patrick will forget 90% of what I talked about. And then everybody,
Mhm.
there's some people who are not interested in what we're talking about. There's some people who are doing something else, but those transcripts have that available to us forever. And now with our AI tools, we have a real good set of like information to be able to separate the signal from the noise. So what I say is
Mhm.
like, how do I replace a lot of what you do, like hands-on keyboard, with audio notes and transcription, some work on the back end?
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, so definitely a bit of a provocative thumbnail for this session, the professional walker. So I love that you're giving us that background. Justin, another thing I enjoy about our conversations is that you are you're kind of most people think about AI for business and for advancing your sales and things like that, but you're applying it to your life. You use these things for your day-to-day life. So I'd love for you to kind of talk more about that, about how it's enhancing your life, or
Yeah.
maybe there's some tools that you tried out and maybe it didn't work so well and you abandoned. I just like that different perspective that you take, where you're using it for your own self, your own day-to-day work.
Yes, perfect. So I'll answer the easy part first. I probably go through everything on Product Hunt. If you're familiar with, like, those are like new tools that come out. So I abandoned 99.9%. Some things don't even get tested out, but like even things that I test out, I abandoned. But
Hmm.
yeah, as far as like personal data, my health data is most important. So I wear an Apple Watch. You can see
Okay.
that here. And what I love about that is, one, it's a data set that has integrity. It's also the most important data set for me personally, my health data. What sits on top of that is a tool called Gyroscope. It is, and what it does is, one, I started it for food tracking, so I take pictures of all the food that I start to that I eat, but it's capturing
Mm.
my steps, it's capturing my heart rate, it's capturing my sleep. But where you start introducing the AI components in that, I have a human coach in the back end. So I
Okay.
provide a Loom video for him every single day, which is actually me running through my morning routine and my morning rituals. I share that with him, and I'm going through the dashboard and I'm doing updates. But I also have 5 AI coaches. I've got a food coach, I got an exercise coach, I've got a meditation coach, and I've got
All
an
AI.
all AI. So
Wow.
it is the full sort, and they have conversations back and forth, but with a human supervisor on the back end. So I'll share my Loom video and the transcripts of my Loom video with all of them. It's like, do your thing, meditation person, do your thing, diet person, do your thing. So that's interesting, right? Because it's like, I feel like I play my health like a video game, because I have like, it's like, all right, my oxygen levels were a little bit low. They were like 90, they're supposed to be at 100%. They were at 95 to 98%. So it's like, I didn't have to do the overhead to get to the work to be able to do it. Just work on your oxygen levels. I just have to do the work on the thing. So that's like, and now I'm like, all right, where do we start applying that to other areas of life? Finance is the thing that makes the most amount of sense, because finance is a little bit more tricky, but a dollar is a dollar, or whatever currency you're looking at. There is some integrity to that data set, and then how do you actually go into the stuff that is more random? We're going to be here for an hour and a half today. We're going to speak. I speak fast, maybe 150 words per minute. So I'm saying 20,000, 30,000 words, whatever it's going to be here. We're going to go through 100 different ideas. 99 of those should just be like, oh, that was entertaining. We went to a session. But there's going to be one idea that I'm just looking at. Rohan's going to be like, ooh, I want to do something with that one piece of it, or I want to mix it with this other one, or I want to talk to Dennis about this, or Justin about this. So those transcripts and separating the signal from the noise there is super interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. That's a lot of AI coaches. I have to say that I was ignorant to realize that there is that many available now. So chat, if you're joining us, we have Justin here for about the next hour. He's willing to take your questions. So go ahead and keep on filling up that chat with questions. Obviously, he has a lot of experience, a lot of background in AI tools. So feel free to talk about that. Or also, I know a lot of you are interested in, kind of the jobs environment and how to kind of integrate yourself into your first jobs or whatnot. So feel free to ask questions about that. Also, Justin has a wealth of experience on all those fronts.
Yeah.
So Justin, it seems like there's a little bit of interest in the chat, and you mentioned the walking and talking.
Yeah.
And I know that you're doing some community building around that. Would you like to tell us about that?
Yeah, and I've done it a couple of other times. So previously, I worked at an innovation center that was on a college campus, and we would do. We came in, and basically the executive came in and said we're going to create the United Nations of Innovation. He actually pointed to the United Nations, which was right across the pathway, but we had no budget. You know what I'm saying? And we had a disparate group of people that were working together from different parts of the organization. So people who were interested in innovation, but not necessarily any other sort of relationship. So we started doing these jam sessions, which were anti-meetings. You'll see a lot of the themes that we're talking about are like, I talk about ways of working that work for people that are all in response to a way that doesn't necessarily work. So we did these jam sessions, which would be between one person and 400 people. Everybody introduces himself, everybody participates, and you share some different, share some ideas out, and you get a bunch of different ideas out. It's the same thing that we're talking about with these transcripts. 99 out of 100 don't necessarily go anywhere. But what happens on the back end of that, you have you want to having a relationship with somebody else. Like I like Dennis, whatever, like Dennis's energy, like the stuff they're talking about. And so maybe some good work comes out of it. We'll call it work, but networking relationship happens. So that was great. But to do that, you had to be at the place where we were at a particular time. And we've tried doing some of this stuff with Zoom, which is great too, right? Like this is great. Like you and I are on opposite ends of the country. We get to connect as well. But like my best ideas, maybe will come into one of my best ideas in the next hour. But most likely it's not. It's going to be like, ooh, Dennis said this, and I got to think about it afterwards. So starting to build asynchronous communities, which are basically chats with groups of 2 to 3 people, just going through some ideas, do daily stand-ups and those type of ones. And I did this 2002. I did it a couple of different times. I did 2013 on a platform called Boxer, 2021-ish on Yak. My new favorite tool, which we don't have a huge community of people there right now, is Carbon Voice, which is the new version of asynchronous voice notes back and forth. So anybody wants to connect and start in the conversation, meet people, that's the way we're working on it. I'll pause there for a second. Also something that's super interesting to me that somebody else is doing, but I'll pause before I go into a tangent.
I apologize to Justin in the chat. Isn't that the terrible timing? The gardeners are outside my door right now, so I think my microphone is picking up some background noise. So I apologize for that. All right,
Good.
chat. So chat, you still have a little bit of a chance to put your questions in the chat. Justin is willing to take your questions. But Justin, before we get to some of the questions that are already there, how can we support you? How can we follow up with you? Is there any social media or a way to contact you you'd like to share?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's the best way into the DMs. If you are, and again, I love the chats. I love doing some of the voice chat stuff. And you connect with me there. And if you're a WhatsApp person, we can. I should actually set up a WhatsApp community before this conversation. But connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a direct message there, and then love to connect in in some sort of asynchronous way that works for everybody. And I'm Justin Finkelstein on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. So for everybody in the chat, that's Justin Finkelstein at LinkedIn. I'll also provide the link in the YouTube posting of this, in case you didn't write it down. All right. So Justin, if it's all right with you, I'd like to go ahead and start with some of the questions that are in the chat.
Sure.
So thank you all for the introductions, but today we're not doing our global roll call. MLD.com says how to find internships and data. Or Justin, what are some of your top tips for somebody perhaps looking for their first internship or their first formal job?
Yes. It's networking. It's networking, networking, networking. It is, and doing it in a way that's actually fun for you. And connecting with people. So like we have meetups in New York. There's multiple a day. Luma is also lu.ma is also doing a lot of a lot of events. Show up places, network with people. I mean, I would start like human beings, and also be like a giver in the relationships. If you help, like if I had a goal of getting an internship right now, I would build a community of people who are looking for internships, and my goal would be to get 10 people internships. And I can guarantee on the back end of that, if I get 10 people internships or help them achieve what they want, I'll wind up getting the thing that I want to get to. So I would look at this chat. I'd get very interested, not for what they could do for me, but I get very interested, like who's in this chat, who's in this chat working on some stuff. And let me just actually just see. I don't know how many people are here right now, but there's who's in this chat? What are they interested in? What are they talking about? How can I help you? You know what I'm saying? Everywhere you are, look for who those people are. And then, because internships aren't necessarily posted on the job boards, and there's so much noise in those places. So
Sure.
human beings, and then also connectivity to your passions. A lot of business is getting done over pickleball in New York right now, because that
Mm.
is, and it is, and it's like, I'm a big professional wrestling fan, right? And so, if, and I'm a big stand-up comedy fan, right? So if you find, don't necessarily connect, like Dennis, you're an interesting, because you are passionate about data science, and that is what you do. But 99% of the people, and I know you have other passions as well, but 99%, like, I don't want to talk necessarily about the technology work that I'm working on. Maybe I do, you know what I'm saying? But, I want to talk about pro wrestling. I want to talk about comedy. I want to talk about parenting. So connect with people as human beings, and do it, and make a sport of it, and do it in high volume. And that's how you get your particular role. There's a book. It's not
Mhm.
that popular. It's called The Seventh Sense by a gentleman named William Dugan. And what it says is basically like, here's the stuff that I'm going to do. Like, here's my deliberate strategy. I'm going to connect with 100 people every single day, and my goal is to get an internship. And the mistake a lot of people make is like drawing a direct like thinking the direct correlation between those. It used to be like a couple of years ago, and somebody might correct me on this, you could go to LinkedIn, just apply for jobs, and you're going to get one. I do not think that is a successful strategy right now, unless you're going to do something like find 1,000 jobs at a time, at a time. So it's networking, connecting with people, and then connecting with your passions.
Wonderful. Yeah, Justin, I don't think you and I have ever had that conversation, but I can attest to your pickleball statement. I took pickleball lessons in New Jersey when I was out there, actually. So I have my own, carbon fiber paddle, and I had a coach, and I joined a league, because for
Yeah.
sure pickleball is very popular, very much a community sport where that leads to those types of conversations. So I completely attest to that. Pickleball is fun. So thank you for that. So going down the questions here, and yeah, guys, keep on filling up the chat with questions. I'm seeing more stuff come in. So Natasha asks, how to transition with no coding background into data science late in your career. Do you have any tips on keeping up with changing technologies? Perhaps you'd like to address that second part, Justin. Do you have any tips on
Yes.
keeping up with changing technologies?
Yes, and let me. I won't talk about the coding piece, but
Yeah.
Natasha, unless you're like, let's just call it like 65, maybe 70, I would not say that you're late in your career. And if you
Sure.
are 65, so that's the first part. I mean, careers can go for a period. So do you have any tips on keeping up with changing technologies? I think it goes back to what we said before: solve your own problems and deal with your personal stuff, right? Like, everybody should have a passion about health, right? It's without that, none of the rest of this matters. So try out a bunch of different health, like, what are some of the gaps around health, and try out different pieces of technology that people talk about, or that work. You'll find that most people don't necessarily, and just be a be a practitioner. Somebody was asking me about like how do I learn AI, and I said just download. And this was somebody who's actually later in her career. I was like, download ChatGPT and just start talking to it, like literally talking to it and asking it questions. And
Yeah.
that's going to be better than any sort of tutorial, any sort of course. And then what
Mhm.
happens is that get really like good at like talking to something, like really good at one thing, and that's going to open up other doors. So yeah, I'll let you
Yeah.
in there. Look,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Justin. I've been carrying kind of this piece of content in the back of my mind that I want to do, where I come across people who say, "Oh, well, AI isn't that great, or it's not going to take my job, or things like." And it's like, well, how many hours have you actually spent with it? Like literally, you just kind of have to kind of put in the time with the AI, with ChatGPT, and really start drawing it out, and that's when you start seeing the power of it. But to your point, I just don't think people have just said, you know what, I'm just going to sit down and use it. I'm
Yeah.
just going to sit down and I'm going to talk to GPT. I'm going to use it. I'm going to maybe ask it to generate some images. And that's how you kind of learn the power, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, so I hear you on that. I think that's great advice. All right. Casual Economist says, I love walking. So it sounds like you have somebody there in your tribe there, Justin. He goes on to say, are you trying to make a walking office?
Yeah, I mean, walking office is actually interesting, but I think that's a yes, yes. So, I'll just yeah. The short answer to that is yes.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Casual Economist. If you're into walking, you might then Justin
Cool.
is somebody you might want to follow.
Yeah, and casual cons, if you could just maybe a little more context to that, like, with
Yeah.
that, then I probably have a little bit more of like a detailed answer to that. Dennis, I want to offer one thing about something you should, you said sit down and try the tool, especially with these talking tools. Go for a walk and try the tools would be another. That would make me happy if 10 people reach out on the back end of this. It was like I look because all the tools that I talk about are walking tools. I'll talk about Claude a little bit because I like that. It's my only non-walking tool, and it's like I have to sit down behind a laptop and work on Claude, and I do like it for some reason. So anyway, that's that.
Okay.
But yeah, let's think more about that question. Casual
All right.
economist.
All right. Okay. So Patrick asked, where do you see these AI tools being used in a business environment? Is there a particular industry that is adopting them more quickly?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think, look, number like the who's gonna people first, small startup second, others, what I'm saying, and then it's gonna, and then it's non-regulated big companies like tech companies are gonna start to
Right.
adopt earlier, and then the regulated companies are gonna be coming afterwards.
Yeah.
I will say the big bet that make is where the Microsoft suite of tools. I mean, they have kind of like a holistic system. I've got friends at Google who probably say the Google tool, but I just don't see it coming as much into the large corporations, and that's the world that I know. But if you know the Microsoft tools, those are the ones that I would say are going to be relevant for every single person on this call, on this place. And then the name of the game is how do you get the stuff that is, and look, there's a 5-year lag between like early adopters and I mean 5 years might even be a short amount of time, early adopters and like adoption of some of the tools. So some of the stuff that I was thinking about meeting summaries in 2019, and now meeting summaries are sort of normal. We did something with my daughter's school yesterday, and Otter.ai, which is also one of my favorite tools, was running in the background, and I was like, but that's like new and innovative, and schools are a little bit behind, but I think it's just, and here's the other thing: industries don't matter as much as like where Patrick is what matters, right? There's niches within niches within niches.
Yeah.
So it is, yeah. So I'll leave that there.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the split you made between regulated companies and non-regulated companies. I think people that are early in their careers, which I think is some of the people in the chat, don't always recognize that. Just because a technology is out there and it's the latest and greatest doesn't mean that companies rush to or even can rush to some of these technologies. So I love the way you're drawing that distinction there, Justin, because a lot of people don't realize that. Just because you're going to go work for a company doesn't mean that they're going to be excited about your cutting edge ideas. There's a lot of external factors why they're not going to immediately pursue that. So I appreciate the distinction that you made there. So Firebrand J asks, "Hello, Dennis. Hello, Justin. Any auto apply, any auto apply AI apps, web notes that you encountered which are free?" Uh, Jay, do you mean auto apply like for jobs, or I'm not sure what the auto apply means, but Justin, maybe you can answer that.
Yeah. So free, most have a free option. Now, here's the thing that I would say to that, Jay. So LinkedIn is like you can do easy apply on LinkedIn jobs and do 2-click applies. And sometimes it's funny, not funny. Sometimes it's fun to do that. Like I was just like, I had when I was looking for a job before, I was like, let me just apply for 100 jobs here. But the thing is, the freer the tool, the easier access to the tool, the more competition that you actually have to work with. So what I would recommend is look for, but there's typically free versions of almost all of the tools. One which I think is a paid. I bought a resume tool because that was like I was interested. I want to help people kind of like find roles. And there's something called Beam Job. I think that's a paid tool which like gets customized resumes. But I don't know necessarily the free space, but I would do a free trial and then go from there. And also, if you're a student, people will typically work with you. And I would say, yeah. So I'd leave it there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess I'll address this to anybody. I'm not trying to pick on Jay or anybody, but I also get these questions when people ask me like, "Oh, I saw this machine learning book or saw this data science book. Should I get it? Should I buy it?" And the reality is that, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to go out and get the resources that you feel are going to help you in your career. So, Jay, I know everybody's, financial situation is different. I have followers all over the world. But there are some things, or maybe you shouldn't seek out the free option, right? Go ahead and invest in yourself. That's totally okay to do that. So just something for everybody to keep in mind, because as Justin says, sometimes the more free the tool, the one, the less reliable it's going to be, and two, the more competition it actually creates. So don't be afraid to invest in yourself. So as a follow up to his earlier question, MLD asks, for people outside the U.S., can they find remote opportunities in the U.S.? What do you think, Justin?
I mean, the answer is going to be a yes. I had a conversation, and again, I'm not so plugged into the job market right now, and I'm not necessarily so plugged into the international job market. But again, the easier, you just got to look at where the competition is and where it exists. Um, so I don't have necessarily a better answer for that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
and you can see, but try and you can get data on how many people apply for it. Like find them, things that exist, find how many people that apply, and then I always do a test of where do I get like go for a bunch of rejections. Don't get ghosted. And what that means is, do you have to apply for 100 things for somebody to come back to you and say we went with another candidate?
Mm.
Even better is we went with another candidate signed Dennis, because what that tells me is they are actually doing recruiting and there's a person behind it. So
Mhm.
that's where I would start looking for those opportunities. But Zan, if you're going to go in that direction, I would the way if I was to do that, I would make it a full-time job for probably I would commit 18 months and I would do it full time to find
Yeah.
that opportunity. And if I wasn't willing to, you might get it, like you might land it on day one, but that's the sort of commitment that I would make if you were going after something that was competitive,
Mm.
comma, I'm speaking from opinion without any real experience around this one.
Sure. Yeah. So to add some real data to what Justin just said, MLD, I'll refer you back to a video that I did. We did a live stream where we were looking at a Selby Jennings salary report or jobs report from earlier this year. Selby Jennings is a big recruiting firm out here in the US. They publish reports on their data, their processes. And their survey found that 55% of applicants were willing to go back into the office. So 55% of the applicants were willing to forego a remote or work at home position. So keep in mind that's just a U.S. based survey. So on those numbers alone, it's very difficult. To me, it indicates that remote work is kind of dropping off, right? The opportunities for remote work is dropping off. And being that you're from outside the U.S., it's probably only going to get harder than that, right? It's probably just the probabilities just drop more, even more than that, right? So based on that, I think that remote work overall, I think, is becoming harder. But again, you're welcome to refer back to that video. It's one of my archive live chats, and you can look at it there. So guys, I'm going to ask you to please not spam the chat. Please don't put your question multiple times. If you see it once on your chat, it'll appear on mine. It just takes me some time to get to it because there's so many good questions in the chat. So Justin, I'm willing to take this one if you want to
Sure.
pass on this one. I have just graduated in comp sci from a reputable UK university. I want to do some personal projects and add them to my CV. Where do you suggest I start? Do you want to take that, or should I take that, Justin?
I have a quick answer, and I thought on the last one, and then
Okay.
if you want to take it on the back end. So it is I would go to Upwork, right? Like, so there's two different ways. There's like create projects that you can use yourself afterwards, and then put those on. So become a consulting company and become your first client. Then get a low dollar. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, Dennis, I want to. You're reputable. You're somebody I want to do something for. I'm going to do. Is there a project that I can do for you? And I'm going to charge you $10, right? And then on the back end of that, you're going to give me feedback, and you're going to give me something. You know what I'm saying? Go path the least resistance to get volume in. But the other thing is, I would go to, like, I know Upwork, used to be called Odesk. Find a project there to start building out the right. And then the other thing that's actually interesting there, for the last question, I think that's a back door into a potential job. So you can get paid, so you can fund your process where you're searching, and you meet people who might actually be able to hire you for another job. So look for these kind of backdoor strategies. Unless, if you're going to do a strategy that everybody else is doing, then you got to do more and more quantity, or you got to be really lucky. So
Yeah. Yeah, Justin, to that, I would add, some people are kind of looking for a quicker solution in Upwork, or maybe you're not gaining traction in Upwork. But overall, I really like to I really hesitate from giving you guys project suggestions because um, creativity is a big part of data science, right? You should have enough skills and enough creativity to be able to say, "Hey, I read this article and I think that this is an interesting question. Let me research this further," right? Because you say you've already graduated, right? So you should, through all your classes, you should have enough skill to be able to start applying them. So I don't want to deny you that opportunity for you to be creative and say, well, okay, maybe I learned something in school and maybe I can, kind of put these things together, right? So Jay Ranjan, in addition to what Justin told you, I would also suggest take some time to think about your interests, about industries you like or whatnot. Read the articles, keep up with the news, and come up with your own projects, right? Come up with your own questions. Questions usually end up being good projects. So that's what I would also advise you in addition to Justin's thoughts. Okay, so Sathwick asks, do you think it's necessary for me to publish papers in order to be looked at for a machine learning engineer role? What do you think, Justin?
uh, I, I think it's a resounding no. Like, everything helps, but the important thing, there's like, you're one person, Zathwick, and you need one job, right? And that job is typically going to be driven by one person. So if somebody who's doing that hiring for that job that exists says, I need people, like the most important thing for me is that people publish papers. Yes. But, and so I would throw back to you, what's behind that question? What's the fear or the procrastination that's behind that question? And the question is, Dennis, like whatever, Dennis, if Dennis says yes, then publish a paper and then, deal with the imposter syndrome of my paper is not good enough because nobody's paper is good enough. So, I know that's not a direct answer to the question, but I would look internally and see if you actually think that actually needs to get done. And why are you asking that question? Why would you publish a paper and why are you not publishing your papers? And I think that'll start leading you in the right direction.
Great. Thank you for that. So Rex is actually also based out of NYC. Now that information and AI tools are ubiquitous, what advice do you have for candidates to distinguish themselves from the rest of the pool?
Yeah, it is. Again, do more and be in your niche and be special in the stuff that you're doing. Don't do what everybody else is doing and use the tools. That's it. Like people, and I know, most people aren't using ChatGPT. Maybe on this call, people are, but I can guarantee that most people aren't using it as much as I am. And it's not even one of my primary tools, but I'll spend an hour today, with ChatGPT. I will take I'm going to take the transcript of this conversation. And I might, I'm going to take the whole thing in YouTube. It's very easy to get transcripts of these things. And I'm going to break down all the pieces and I'm going to ask it 1,000 different questions and I'm going to talk to it. So, and ChatGPT is like the known tool.
Right.
And most people aren't actually using it. So how you distinguish yourself is when people ask you the question, you can speak in details because you're a practitioner and you're actually using this stuff and you have an interesting perspective on it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's really, really solid advice you're getting there, Rex. Firebrand J says, thank you so much. It's great advice, referring to the earlier guidance you gave, Justin. So thank you too, Jay. So Michael asks, hello, everyone. How do AI technologies contribute to sustainability within the industry? How easy do you think it is to reskill and upskill workers to adapt to the evolving times of AI?
Yeah, it is super easy and super hard. I mean, things evolve so quickly, which means you can be, what I'm saying, you can be on the forefront of any technology that you invest. I mean, let's call it 10 hours. And 10 hours means going to 100 hours. Dennis did a podcast telling his story and, and sitting in Starbucks for 8 hours a day. And that inspired me. Like, I'm not going to sit in Starbucks, but I used to walk an hour a day. My goal used to be 13,500 steps a day. I was like, now my goal is 30,000 steps a day, and I don't get that every day. And I'm walking 2 hours to 4 hours a day, and I am working that whole time and talking, but I'm trying tools and I'm trying to do automations during that period of time. So it is invest the time and you can be like on the forefront of this stuff. And I just know, like, I mean, there's things I don't know. I want to find the person who is more advanced in using AI on walks than I am. Like, I don't like, one, of those few people exist, and I'm hoping there's hundreds of people like that because I want to know them and I want to be playmates with them, and it's the thing that I like, that I want to do and want to talk about. So that's it. But last thing I'll say on that, Dennis, is I've been, I've been kind of focusing on this stuff, and I've been like, this is August, so this is family time. So most of my time is with my family, but I've spent 4 to 5 hours every single day because my kids wake up late. And my wife's been working a lot during this, during this month. And I am like, Justin on August 29th, 2024 is like light years ahead of where Justin was in July of 2024. Or yeah.
Because of AI, you mean?
Yeah, because of the practice. It doesn't
Because of the
take
practice.
much.
Okay.
It doesn't take
Okay.
much. And just don't do what everybody else is doing, and like there's imposter syndrome. There's like I'm doing something similar to what Dennis is doing, and Dennis is doing it like so much better than what I'm saying, like I am. And what I'm saying, I don't use that to I don't use that as like a way to beat myself up. I use that as a way to do you know what I'm saying? Like find
Yeah.
out what's going on. And Dennis loves numbers and everything. Dennis is like 3 steps, 5 steps ahead of me. You know what I'm saying? It answers every single one of my questions. Wouldn't if I was just like if he told me to do something and then I came back with another question and did it. But yeah, just go and practice and then like know yourself that you are an expert in this area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Justin, it's funny because your response kind of sparked a thought in my mind because I'm thinking about Michael's question here about reskilling your workers and upskilling your workers, and guys like you and I, we lived through the dot-com boom.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of like when I graduated college at the beginning of all that. So I'm thinking about the tools. So I'm thinking about something like, Microsoft's Visual Studio. When that first came out, that was like a revolutionary development environment and, change things for guys like me and all that, right? And so I'm thinking to now, right? If we think about this as the next, boom of tools, um, you couldn't send people home and say, "Well, go learn Visual Studio, go study Visual Studio on your own." That wasn't practical as a manager, right? Let's just say
Yeah.
you're a manager trying to upskill. You couldn't say that. You couldn't say, "Oh, yeah, just go home and play with Visual Studio and learn it." But you can do that with AI tools,
Yes.
right? You can do that. That's a reasonable expectation to say, "Hey, if you want to be upskill and learn about AI, spend some time with ChatGPT this weekend." Right?
Yeah.
As a manager, you can make that request. You couldn't do that before, right? You couldn't do that
Yeah.
with Visual Studio. So that's also a little bit of a shift there, right? And I'm still developing this thought. I literally, you
Yeah.
literally sparked that just now, but that's kind of a shift there, right? You as a manager could literally ask every employee of every level, every experience, to go home and play with AI tools. Like
Yeah.
you can make that request. That's reasonable. You couldn't do that before. You couldn't do
Yeah.
that with some of the other tools.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a shift in that regard, Michael. So I hope that helps you. All right. So Casual Economist says, uh, well, first of all, let me jump ahead here. Casual Economist is giving you a shout out here. 30,000 steps a day while working. I think I found my new hero. That's funny. So he also asked, do you envision being able to fully walk while doing certain jobs like walking sales, BI, or maybe even a walking doctor?
Yes, so brilliant. I mean, so here's the way that I'll answer that question. It is, oh, Dennis, you still have me? Okay, good.
Mhm.
Okay, I thought my one screen froze and then it looked like you froze, so I want to make sure. Okay, got
No,
it.
no, you're great.
So here's when I realized, I was like, what is the thing that I will do till the day I die? And it is walking and brainstorming. So from that perspective, it is, yes, I think it is all possible at some point in time. And let's take that into the practical right now. It is, I break down my day into walking, voice. I have my phone with me, but I'm not looking at the screen. Number 2 version is what can I do walking while looking at the screen? You can't do a lot of like major processing. What can I do with my phone sitting down? Is the 3rd. And then where do I need to go over to a laptop? So the name of the, most, and then the other version of that is where do I need to be with somebody live face to face? And I'll talk about that piece in a second. So if you start moving more and more into the walking, like there's somebody on this call that didn't even think of this as a possibility before. So like 40 to 50 years out, I think it's all possible. But what's most important, like if zero other people on the planet adopt this way of being able to work, I'm still happy because I just want to do it, right? And and it's like it's I'm free. I wake up in in the morning. I go for a walk with my dog. I have like I have my life afterwards, and I'm free doing more and more of that. So it will get there, if for no other reason than I'm passionate about it, and probably other people will be passionate about it. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't make that much of a difference as long as I can go and walk tomorrow.
Okay.
But I think it's all possible.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. All right, let me jump ahead. Yeah, Justin, willing to help you out here on this question. I am doing a master's in biological sciences. I wish to ask what certifications can I do to make me employable in the data science market? I have a background in R, Python, SPSS.
Yeah, I think that's all you, Dennis.
Yeah. Well, first of all, KP, these are the types of questions I would usually answer on my regular streams. Today is a little bit special because Justin is being generous with his time and joining us. So if you have more questions on like AI tools or the work environment or whatnot, that would be a little bit more appropriate for this. But the quick answer to what I would tell you is to start taking some of those skills that you have, like you mentioned Python and whatnot, start applying those. So the answer isn't always more certifications and tutorials. It's what can you do with the skills that you've learned, right? Start actually putting together some projects that you came up with in your own mind and start applying those and showing that you can use it. But you're welcome to come back to some of my regular streams where I can go back into more detail. But I'm trying to focus on some of the questions that are kind of a little bit more appropriate for our interview session. So with that being said, Fact World, my good friend Fact World, one of my early supporters. Do you think that AI would carry out the tasks of a data scientist in the near future? Oh, fact world. That means you haven't been attending our Sunday lessons. We're showing how it's we are being data scientists with ChatGPT. We're using ChatGPT to write all of our data science code. So I invite you to come to those. But Justin, anything you want to add to that? As far as running into people who say that AI won't replace them or that AI can't do X, can't do Y. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's all true, and right, and it's like what Dennis, like, number one, what you said is right. Like it's getting done today, and it's not an all or I mean it's not an all or nothing. We want
Right.
to be here. We want to do work, right? We're not here. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, it is. It is getting done today. It will surprise you with what it can do. It will also be surprised about what's happening from the with the human being perspective. And I think the important piece is um, what are the things that we don't want to do? Like not necessarily. Here's the framework I've looked. Here's what I'm passionate about. There's a ikigai formula. Here's what I'm passionate about. Here's what I'm great at. Here's where the market demands me to do something, right? And so what I'm passionate about, I'm going to potentially get great at, and hopefully that matches up with the market. But the AI can fill some of those gaps, but it's nuance. It's never going to be 100%. You know what I'm saying? It's never going to be good enough. And it's like the more I get like my work automated, the more I automate, the more possibilities there are out there about things that could be done that aren't going to be done. So actually, the more progress we make, the bigger gap that there actually is between where we want to be. So it's not absolute. It's a nuanced conversation. And I would say people who are good with people will never be replaced. People who are learning will not be replaced in the long term, especially those people who are passionate and committed about what they're doing won't be replaced in the midterm. People who are phoning it in is going to get a lot harder to actually, who don't have the skills and are phoning it in, not caring about the stuff they're going to be doing. those people are going to get replaced either by those people who do care and are putting in the work or by technology.
Yeah, definitely hear you on that. Guys, I was getting some feedback that maybe the YouTube feed had gone down, and it looks like it indeed had a hiccup of some kind. But I have restarted it, so we should be back on YouTube. If anyone can confirm that for me, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I think the YouTube for some reason stopped with no explanation, and that's something that my rebroadcasting service did for some reason. So apologies for that if you're watching this on YouTube, but we should be back on there.
Yeah, I can confirm it went down. I thought it was a me issue because I didn't have, and I confirm it's back as well.
Okay, it's back. Great. So sorry about that, YouTube. But it looks like we're still live on all the other platforms. Okay. So Michael says, thanks a lot for the advice. Well, great, Michael. I hope you found it helpful. And thanks to Justin for joining us. Um, okay, Joseph says we're back on YouTube. Yeah, thanks for that, Joseph. Um, Nanda Nanda asks about starting out and being new. Nanda, I think this is your first time joining us, so welcome. On Thursdays, we usually have an interview guest, so I'd like to take your question at some other point in the future when we're more on my regular stream. But if you have any questions on AI or AI tools or the workplace or things along those lines, we have a great guest with us today who has a wealth of experience in all of those. So if you'd like to ask a question on that, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, actually, that goes for the entire chat. If the chat has any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Justin is being very generous with his time. But Justin, remind me, how can people find you again?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best way now. I'm kind of like with the kind of energy and chat. Yeah, LinkedIn. Connect with me there. I'll accept your connect. Especially you send a direct message on there, and then um, I will be setting up. I mean, and I will be setting up a WhatsApp groups to do some more chats, and then anybody who wants to connect with me on Carbon Voice and have like a real asynchronous conversation, especially with the number of people that are here, I'd be happy to do that.
Great, great. So Patrick asks, what AI tool do you want that you haven't seen yet?
Yes. So actually, Dennis and I were talking about this before, and I said I'm not going to force it into the conversation. And this is the perfect place of it. So there's two. So number one is I move between platforms, quite a bit. So something that does Zapier, like the stitching things together or creates integrations between tools, more automatic, right? Like where I could actually code that via voice, right? And so like I'd like to have like, hey, grab this link, I'm saying grab this link for and then the second one, which is so that is like something that just kind of like the one shop hub that allows me to bring tools in and out. The other thing, which is a little one, which I think which probably exists already, and I'd love to hear from anybody, is so like we have as I said, I want to get the transcript of this session. I would love to be able to plug, just to grab the link of this and then plug it into a tool, and it'll grab the transcript. But I actually want to get into ChatGPT or to Claude. It's like take this link, pull the transcript, and then run it through my custom directions for what I'm looking for here. That's just from the link. Because what I have to do now is I've got to take the link and then I've got to go someplace else. I've got to download the transcript. I've got to save the transcript as a PDF, or I could take all the text, but this is going to be a lot of text. Then I got to upload it to Claude. Then I got to upload it to my project, and then I've got to run the custom instructions against it, and then I got to pull that out and then go someplace else. I'd rather say, take this link and do this recipe, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, and I was surprised that doesn't already exist. That seems like a fairly straightforward item. So guys, if you're in the chat and you're looking for a project idea, maybe Justin just gave you one, right?
Yes, and this is, yeah, if that's something that can actually get built, I'd be willing to pay for that as well. You know, I definitely would be willing to pay for it as a service. I would be, I would be willing to pay, for, the creation of that. So if you got it, yeah, if you know that it exists, great. If you want to do the research of that, that's great. Yeah, so yeah, that would be a decent project.
So you mentioned Claude, and you also mentioned Claude, I think, in your intro.
Yeah.
So do you want to share a little bit more about your interest in Claude, and kind of like why that's your preferred tool?
Yeah, so it's new for me, right? I hadn't been using it at all. I've been but the projects is the big thing that I'm able to work with Claude. So projects allow you to put in custom instructions and then put in reference data from what you're working with. So when I do my walk and talks in the mornings, um, I'm switching. I record it on Otter,
Mhm.
Otter.ai, which is amazing for transcription. And during that call, I'll talk to my coach on Carbon Voice. I'll talk to my health coach on Loom. I will do a video. I'll either do a live stream or I'll do my own video, and that's all getting transcribed in the back end. So then what I do is I download from Otter, I put it into PDF, I upload it into Claude, and then it runs it through a recipe. And here's the beautiful thing that it does. And custom GPTs probably do this in ChatGPT. It just doesn't work in my mind as well. And then it runs it through the recipe. And it was just like, all right, what business ideas came out of that? Who are the people that you talked about with that? That goes into your relationship management tool. What questions are inspired by this post? And here's my favorite piece of this is based on this, what should I put into other summaries? So now I can feed it into my custom instructions on the back end of like, so it's a that you're going to come up with a term. I'm going to say a bunch of words and maybe you're going to solve it, but it's just like it's a loop, right? It's a feedback loop that continually flywheel effect that continually improves on itself. And then it is, I mean, the other piece is I was like, all right, I exchanged I sent a Loom video to Dennis, on this topic. I also, my reference data can say Dennis is Dennis Salguero. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Salguero,
Den-
yep.
yep, Dennis Salguero, and boom, boom, boom. This is how I know him, and so that's why I like Claude for that, the project, because it takes very unstructured data and puts it in a structure that works for my mind.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. That's definitely unique to the GPT tools out there. And ChatGPT doesn't do anything like that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very new as well. I mean,
That's
the
wonderful.
projects are very new. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Well, great.
Which is another tip. Like,
Okay.
be in the tools to know what's new in the tools, and that's how
Yeah.
you can be on the cutting edge. Be the first
Absolutely.
person who tries out something that's new. And then Claude was something like, just to say, like 2 weeks ago, I was a Chat GPT guy and custom tools, and now I'm speaking on a live stream with people about Claude projects as a practitioner because I've run through 100 projects. So I went from knowing what the tool was to being some level of expert in a period of 2 weeks. Now, if I don't improve my skills, I'm saying, if I drop and go do something else, that dies off. But early mover advantages can really make a difference.
Yeah. Great. Great. Yeah. Coming back to the earlier question, I'm personally looking forward to Sora and some of the video generation tools. Right. We've only touched the surface on those things. I think that there's a lot of potential there. It's still to come.
Yes. I messed around with Veed earlier this week,
Okay.
VEED.io, and just did something basic. I always start with stories about my dog, like, and it is, and this was just actually, this is interesting. It's in ChatGPT. I pay for ChatGPT. I pay $20 a month. It's a custom
Me
GPT.
too. Yeah.
I was like, I test out custom GPTs as well. That's the version of like the product hunt in the apps, and I guess I'm doing more of that now. Test it out. I was like, create something on my dog, and it created a video in 3 minutes that was a decent video about my dog, and I
Right.
was like, that the video stuff is super interesting.
Absolutely, and so much more to come on that, right? I mean, it's very, very, very early days for the
Yes.
video generation, so I'm really excited about what that holds for the next year, 2 years. It's gonna be exciting.
Yes.
So again, guys, Justin can be reached on LinkedIn. That's the best way to reach out, and it's Justin Finkelstein on that. I'm sorry, did I pronounce that? I think I pronounced it
It's
incorrectly.
Finkelstein, but yeah, that's okay.
Finkelstein, excuse me. If you wanna connect with him, I'll also include it in the YouTube links. But Justin, I think we've had a great conversation. Really appreciate your time. Do you have any other closing notes or anything else you wanna kind of leave the audience with?
Um, yeah, I'm just gonna add my. I'll add the LinkedIn to the chat there. Yeah,
Okay,
no, just thanks a lot. Please, like, especially if you're. I'm definitely looking for playmates in the space of asynchronous audio chats. I don't have a lot of connections on Carbon Voice right now, so reach out to me on LinkedIn. And if you want to have like live conversations, we got all the time to be able to do that.
great.
Also thinking about starting up some WhatsApp groups just to do some conversations on there. So yeah, thanks so much for this time. This was super invigorating, inspiring, Dennis, and love all the stuff that you're doing. And I guess the last piece I'd say for everybody is take advantage of these live streams. Take advantage of what Dennis is doing. I've got some thoughts of like if somebody wants to be like a Dennis apprentice. I don't know if he's looking for like an apprentice, like what I would do if I wanted to get more attention from Dennis or other people. So feel free to reach out on that. But thank you so much for having me, and thanks so much for
Yeah, I got my hands full with all the messages I get now, so maybe not.
yeah. Well, no, I'm saying like somebody like and just yeah, whereas like somebody who could help and like I would just like implement the stuff that you do and all that stuff. So anyway,
Okay, okay,
I don't want
yeah.
to cause a flood of other things. Sorry about that. I shouldn't have opened that Pandora's box. But
No, yeah, content creation's work, guys. It takes a lot of work to pull all this together. So yeah, I got my plate full. People think I just work for this hour during the live stream and that's it. But Justin, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate your generosity. And chat, thank you for all the great questions. And it's been a great interview series throughout August. And Justin, you've been great about adding to that. So thank you so much.
thanks
So
so much, Dan.
guys,
A lot of fun.
thanks for your time. Great that we got to spend this together. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and I'll see you next time.